A good way to make an animation system in Godot manually is to make a class. So I'm going to make one right now and walk you guys through it. So you can't make a scene out of it, you have to make a GD script. So new script, and I'll name it AniClass, just short for AnimationClass.gd. At the beginning of any class in Godot, you have to specify a class name at the beginning of the script. So right here, I'm typing AniClass. Yeah, that's perfect. I'm going to delete all this and then get ready to set the class up. So this class is going to have two main parts: an animation function that iterates through sprite frames, and a timer that controls a Boolean array. All this will make more sense during implementation, but for now, just roll with me. So first off, we need to make a variable for our wait time on the timer. We are going to initialize it in an init function or initialize function that is supplied by Godot. Is this a default function? And it's called when the class is created. So the wait time, I usually like to default it to 1 second. That just seems like a good time, you know, just in case you just want a basic timer, just for 1 second each. And yeah, right here I just commented that. And yeah, so I'm going to set the wait time to the W capital T. And yeah, so that our wait time is initialized at this point. So anytime we make a new class or a new object of the class, and yeah, we have that wait time set to 1. Yeah, so we're going to need a timer. So right now I'm going to get that all set up. So I will call the function createTimer, and we are going to pass in a time to wait, an array, and a spot that the timer will be defaulted to changed. So we will first create a new timer object and then give it to the variable timer. We're going to do this by setting a variable timer and having it equal to timer.new, which is creating a new object from the timer class that Godot supplies. Then we will use the function setOneShot and set that to true. Then we are also going to use the timer function setWaitTime. And and we're going to set that to our wait time that is passed in through our parameter. Now we're ready to connect the timeout signal to a function. Now we will call the timer.connect function that is in the timer class, and we'll pass in the string timeout as a string, and we're going to target ourselves, pass in the display timer as a string, which will be our target function to run upon timeout, and then we're going to pass in the array that was passed in to create timer, and our array spot to the display timer function, and then we'll return the timer. So our create timer function is now complete. Hell yeah. Next up, we're going to create a variable for the timer that we'll create in the init function. And then we're going to make an array of booleans. This array of booleans is for the timer, and I'm going to set the first spot to false and the second spot to true. Now we go get to the init function. So inside the init function, we're going to call our create timer function and pass the return of that to our frame timer variable. First, I'm going to pass our wait time into the function, which will dictate how long the timer waits before resetting. And I'm going to pass in the frame bool variable, which is our array of bools. And I'm going to give it a spot to change. I think we're going to make the array spot a variable and then set that to 1. I'll pass it into the create timer function and then initialize it in the initialization function, which I'm doing right now. Okay, so we got the create timer function set up. We're passing it into a new timer in the initialization function. And the next step is we're going to set up an animation function. But first, I got to do a couple things. So as our animation class animates, we want to keep track of the frame number we're on of the sprite that we're animating. So right here, I'll just make a variable called frameNum, and then I will initialize it to 0. Because, unless we want to, like, pass in the starting frame. Like, because when we pass in the starting frame, we'll get initialized anyway, but I just like setting it to 0 just in case. So we won't get, like, some type of uninitialized error or something, so it doesn't crash the game. Oh, there is one thing I almost forgot to do, which is why I took a quick break. So I need to make a display timer function with the same exact name that I put in those quotes. And I'm going to have it have 2 parameters that are going to be passed in from the connect. And yeah, so every time that timer fires off, it'll call this function, and it will pass the array and the array spot into this function that I'm making right now. So, yeah, I think I'll just name it spot. Yeah, that sounds fine. Yeah. So in here, all I'm going to do is just say array, and then at that spot, set that to true. We always want to set it to true. There's no other think we would want to set it to, because it's going to be, this is after the timer is done, it will call this and set it to true. So that means that the timer is finished and that it's ready to be called again. So bam, pretty much everything about the timer is completely finished at this point. Now it's time to move on to the animation. I'll create a function named animation. Right now I am going to set up the parameters. So we'll want to pass in a sprite, which will be our image that we're going to iterate through, a start frame, and a max frame, both of type int. So yeah, those will be our frames that we'll start at and end at. So once we get into the function, we're going to set up a couple of if statements that check whether or not we want to play the animation backwards or forwards. So passing in a higher start frame means that we'll play the animation backwards, and passing in a lower start frame, then that means we'll play the animation forwards instead of backwards. As you can see right here, if the start frame is greater than max frame, that means we're playing the animation backwards. Then we're going to subtract the frame number instead of adding, because we want to play the frames from highest to lowest. And it's the opposite if you play normally. If you play normally, you want to play from lowest to highest, so you add. That's how you iterate through the frames. Next, we're going to set our sprite frame to our current frame. After setting the sprite frame, we're going to check if we have reached the final frame of the animation. We're going to do this because we want to decide if we want to repeat or not. But no matter what, we want to set the current frame back to the starting frame. Just in case if we ever play it again, it'll play the animation from the right frame again. But keep in mind, we're not setting the sprite frame to the starting frame, just the animation class's frame number variable. The actual sprite frame will actually just stay on the last frame. So yeah, this is because if we have a non-repeatable animation going, we don't want it to be, we want it to stay on that last frame. Like if a door shuts, we want it to stay on the door shutting frame, not the door is actually open frame. Now let's get to more timer stuff. So, with timers, the logic is that you set a Boolean variable to false until the timeout signal is triggered. And that's what I'm going to do here. For our start time function, we need to pass in a timer object as well, because otherwise it just doesn't work. I'm not really sure exactly why. I've tried to do it other ways. I really don't know why it doesn't work, but I'll always have to do it this way. I like to also add a second parameter, which is a bool variable, in case we want our second Boolean variable to be set to false until the timer is up. Yeah, it's just nice to have an extra Boolean variable just in case. I've used it before in some of my programs and some of the implementations, and yeah, this is perfect. We'll also need to make a helper function for start time to make it easier to use and write. The reason we want to do all this is because with animation, you want to be able to have some type of frame rate, and the timers are perfect for that. So we can set our timer in our animation object to 1/60th of a second, and then it'll play on each timeout. So that's basically 60 frames per second. It'll play 60 times per second and just move forward the frames that fast. And that's perfect for animation because we can set it to like 24 frames, we can set it to 30 frames per second, we can set it to 48, we can set it to 200. It doesn't matter, but we don't want it to run as fast as possible. We just want it to run at a certain frame rate. So that's why I just decided to have the timer attached to the animation class. So that way we could just like do all of it in one package. And it really simplifies a lot of the code during implementation. But let's finish up the set frame spot function. All I'm going to do is set the frame boolean variable to true or false, whichever one we pass in. All it does is get a spot from the array that's in the class and then set that spot to true or false. So we're going to use this in the start time function by using the set frame spot, and then we're going to just set the first, or not the first spot, but the number 1 spot to false, because that's the spot that the timer is controlling. And we're going to write a get timer function that will act as a helper function start time, but also be able to be used outside of the class whenever we implement this animation class. And here we're going to use it for the parameter that we passed in, and here we're just going to get the timer and then start it. And then we're going to make the optional part, which will be the second timer, or the second Boolean variable that we can set to true or false. And yeah, we don't always want to have it happen, but just in case, I don't know, like I just like to have it as an extra option, just in case I don't feel like making a Boolean variable in the class or the implementation file that I'm using. So I just wanted to go over something. It's been taking me a while to finish this video, and in that time, I have been working on my own game, and I discovered that the playing boolean variable really is not needed at all. Like, you could just handle this shit like outside the class. So I don't know if you want to include some type of playing variable that like tells whether or not you want to actually play the animation. You could do that, but for here, I'm just gonna get rid of it. There's really no point of it. I really don't see a reason why you'd want to do it this way. So basically, all I'm gonna do is take off the playing variable, uh, fix the indentation a little bit, cut off this little part, and bam. That's really all you need. Cause like you could just outside the class, you could just say, oh, if you reach the max frame, then bam, stop. Okay, and then like yeah, there's no other really thing that's actually needed. Cause I actually did make a animation replay function that automatically always replays the same thing over and over again. But the thing is, you always kind of want this set to true. Because like if it was set to true, then it wouldn't repeat, or I mean, it wouldn't stop. And yeah, so basically this will just work the same way as the animation replay would, except we don't have the start time right here. That's in the same function. But there's no point of making a whole new function just to add start time within it. I don't want to add start time. I want the user to do that, whoever uses the class. And yeah, so this is perfect right here. So in our animation class as a review, if the start frame is greater than max frame, we subtract the frame number. I'll zoom in a little bit. Yeah. So yeah. And if the starting frame is less than or equal to max frame, we just plus. But yeah, if it was equal to max frame, we'd just kind of get out anyway. It would just reset the start frame. It would just kind of run in a loop continuously, never do anything. It would just keep playing the same frame, and you might as well not do the animation at that point. But yeah. But the sprite frame is always set to that after we add and after we subtract. So you always have to figure that after you play this animation, the sprite frame will be one more frame ahead. So I'm going to go over a simple use case for it. I have created this is something I'm using for my other game. Just like a drawing that I have. It has 8 different directions for the head, and the legs move separately. Wait. Has 26 frames, and bam, yeah, all it is just like a simple walking animation from a spider. I was watching spiders on YouTube, and yeah, I got this animation. So, I didn't steal the animation, I just drew it from a reference of spiders. But yeah, so here's the body frames, and here's the head frames. It's pretty simple. But yeah, so down here, the first thing we want to do is we want to make a variable that's gonna be our class. I'll just call it anime just for shits and giggles. Or maybe I should label them differently. Maybe head anime, and then var body anime, and bam, just have them right there. So I'll make the ready function, and well, actually, you don't actually need to set these in the ready function, which is nice about classes. All you need to do is say AniClass.new, and then set whatever wait time you want for the head. I'll just set 1 second. I don't actually need to put anything since the AniClass defaults to 1 second for wait time right here, which is nice. See, look, that's all you need to do. And for body anime, I will set AniClass.new, and I'll make this 60 frames per second. Bam, right there. So 60 FPS for the legs, and in the ready function, all I need to do now is just add these both as children. So here is where the let me see, get frame, yeah, get timer. Here's where the get timer comes in handy like crazy. So you just say add child, and then you say head anime dot get timer, and bam, now you got that timer added as a child. So every second, if you start the time, the time will start. So it'll work with this class. It'll be as if we added a timer just by itself. But if you notice, like, I don't know, I just like to have it this way so that everything's just together in one package. I like it like that. That's what the whole point of a class is to me, just to make it simplify some shit. And so body anime, I'll do the same thing here. Get timer, and bam. Now they're both added as children, and they're both completely in my class, so I could use them anytime. So where I usually use these is in the process function, because that's where I know to usually do animations in Godot. And all you really need to do is have a simple if statement. So you'll say if, I don't know what I called the thing. It will be get frame spot. That's what I usually do. Is that really it? Yeah, that is it. Okay. So I usually use different names for a different project with the same class. But yeah, this is I sometimes change the names up. Okay. So for head anime dot get frame spot, and then I'll say 1. So basically, it's returning the frame spot and saying if this is true, do this. So basically, all I'm gonna do is say head anime, and here's where that start timer thing comes in handy. So where is that? See, start time. I don't actually need this. I think it was supposed to be if second timer, and do this. So basically, if it's true, set that. Well, we're supposed to set that to false, and that's what that's supposed to be. So only if we want to mess with that second timer. That's what I should have done in the first place. But yeah, so head anime dot start time, and you need to pass in head anime since that is the ana class variable. For some reason, I need that to work. I think I went over this earlier. And see how we now we're starting a time. So every second, this little condition will run. So this is pretty nice. Since process is already a loop, it'll run as fast as it can, and then it'll play this once a second. That's what's pretty nice about the class. That's the whole point of having this timer. Where is that? That's the whole point of having this timer attached to the class, is that now we're only going to play this. Well, I haven't said it in the process function yet, but the animation function. I'll set it right now. Yeah, I already saved what I did earlier, and I will say head anime dot animation, and then I need to pass in the sprite, so that will be the head, and I forgot some of the parameters. So start frame and max frame. Okay, I just want to make sure there wasn't anything extra. And it'll be 0 and 7. So we could already run this and just check. I think I'll run this. See, look, it's already playing. It's playing once per second. Pretty sweet, huh? So the next thing I'll do, well, you already kind of get the process. At this point, so it's as if head anime, well, instead of head anime, we'll see body anime dot get frame spot 1, then do body anime dot start time body anime, and then body anime dot animation, and then do body. And this is 0. Oh wait, I forgot to use my actual constant. Body frames. I should use that right here too. Head frames. Bam. Perfect. Look. Now it's going to play the walking animation. Let's play this. Boom. See? It's playing that animation. It's pretty sweet. So what's really cool about this is that you can just set the frame rate to anything you want. Let's just say we set it to 10 frames per second. That's be slow as shit. And let's say we want this one to go really fast. Maybe like 48 frames per second. That's pretty damn fast. And bam. Wait, I keep accidentally doing that. Okay. Whoa! And this is slow. Hell yeah. It's pretty sweet. This thing's going to break its own neck soon. So I'm going to stop this. And yeah, and this works perfectly. I've tested it a lot, and I do all my animations with it. I know there is an AnimationPlayer that's built into Godot, but I just don't have. I've gotten so used to using my own class that I don't want to use the other one. And this works perfectly for me. If I ever find something that it just does not work for, then maybe I'll get the animation player shot. But other than that, I would probably recommend everyone to use that, since this is just a personal class that I use, and it's probably not as well tested as the one that's written for Godot. And probably like people will pick this shit apart like in the comments, but I don't really care. This is just something I just wrote on my own time. I just felt I kind of had fun doing it. That's all I gotta say. So I don't know if I have this in the video yet, but I made a bunch of set time functions. That's like set wait time, set frame spot, or I think I showed that in the video, and set frame number. And these are just like little functions just so the user has more control of them, and which is me most of the time, well, all the time. And here's get wait time, get timer. That's very important. You really need that for this class. It's critical. But yeah, next time I'm going to go into maybe a more complicated use of this class. And yeah, I'll just show an example from the game that I'm working on and just a little segment of it. And holy crap, I do not want to write that again, so that's why I'm just going to use that. But damn, it was pretty complex. And it took a bit of math and what I learned from a lot of computer science classes. So have a good one, and I'll see you guys next time.